to everyone. I thank everybody for jumping on and being with us tonight and joining the Catholic Business Network of Montgomery County as we gather to learn a little bit about one of our community's most important members. My name is Jeff Cannell. I have the pleasure of serving as the president of the CBN Montgomery County. And I want to start by first thanking two of our board members, Annabelle and Anna, for putting this event together and taking the time to not only come up with this great idea, but helping to facilitate it. So Annabelle and Anna, thank you. I also want to thank the team from Suburban Hospital for being with us tonight and taking the time to share with us what's really a transformation of the campus at Suburban and all of the great things that are happening as part of that. I think, as we all know, Suburban Hospital is a community-based, not-for-profit hospital. It's been around and serving Montgomery County and the surrounding area since 1943. It's part of the Johns Hopkins system. It's the designated trauma center for Montgomery County. And it's also the only hospital in the world that sits across from the NIH. So a tremendous resource and asset for all of us. But maybe more importantly, it's our community hospital. And maybe more fortunately for all of us, it's a world-class hospital that is local. And so we're thrilled to have the team from Suburban here. And I'm going to turn the program over to Annabelle to get us started and do some introductions. And again, just thank everybody for being here.
Thank you, Jeff. And welcome members and guests. Thanks again for joining us for this great opportunity to virtually tour the new facility at Suburban Hospital. I'd like to introduce three members of the Suburban Hospital team who have been instrumental in not only the hospital's multi-million-dollar capital campaign project, but also working over the last several years to physically build this new structure and complete the hospital's campus renovations. Please join me in welcoming Janine Workman. She is the Associate Director of Development for the Suburban Hospital Foundation. Cindy Mertz, who is the Vice President of Development for the Suburban Hospital Foundation, and Joe Lindstrom, Suburban Hospital's Vice President of Operations. And before they get started, I just want to say, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat as they come to you, and we'll circle back and answer those at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
So can everyone see my screen? Yes? Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. It's so nice to be here tonight with you all. Jeff kind of took away some of the fast facts that I had, but just in case you didn't know, we were founded in 1943, but have not had a major renovation since the 70s. So this was a big deal for us. We are one of the busiest hospitals in the county, with hospital admissions and emergency visits totaling about 65,000 annually. And our community health and wellness team has programs throughout the county, serving over 69,000 individuals each year. Some of you may not know this, but like Jeff said, we are the designated trauma center. So any major accidents on the Beltway or anything to that extent would come to us. And we've had not as many in the last year because of COVID, but we are quite busy at times. We also have several locations, not only on Old Georgetown Road, but physicians' offices and a surgical center on Rock Spring Drive and Democracy Boulevard. We've also received a number of quality and safety designations over the last year, which is quite impressive given it's been a tough year. High performance ratings in cardiac care, stroke care, orthopedics, and our emergency department. And we have worked extremely hard over the last couple of years to achieve magnet designation, which is the highest credential for professional nursing practice. And only 8% of hospitals worldwide have this status. We officially opened the North Building in March of last year, just before COVID hit our area. And I thought I'd ask Joe to start by telling us a little bit about how we got to this point and why we needed the renovation.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Lindstrom, Vice President of Operations, as introduced, and I've been at Suburban. It'll be 23 years in June. So I have had the lovely experience of being involved in the building addition project since the beginning and its inception. So it's been an exciting project for all of us at Suburban. So as you can see, this is the North Building, and you can see to the left of the screen is the South Building. So you can see how this connects. So the history behind this is this project went on for a long time, for just about 10 years, for us to get the building approved by the project. One of the biggest obstacles that we had to overcome is that the campus was split into two areas, with Lincoln Street going right through the middle of the campus. So the first order of business was to get the street closed so that we could build on top of where Lincoln Street actually was. So the North Building actually sits on where Lincoln Street used to be. So once we got that approved, we went through many iterations with the county. It's 32 days of hearings as far as to get the project approved. And we're in the neighborhood, so we have to abide by the residential codes because we sit there by special exception. So we had many discussions with the county and with the neighborhood to be able to get to the project, to put the shovel in the ground, if you will. You know, if I had in hindsight, if we would have designed this building 10 years ago, I think we probably would have made some serious mistakes, because healthcare has evolved so far within that 10 years that the silver lining of the delay of the 10 years basically gave us the opportunity to rethink how we were going to utilize space and to be able to make it flexible space and to prepare for the future.
So as you walk into the building now, we are coming directly from the garage. It's a very short walk. And as you enter, you'll see the main information desk on your left. And we have 24/7, we have security guards and people checking ID now, which is necessary, obviously. The glass doors here, if you continue to walk, is our new cafe and dining area. And that's where, our staff can be, visitors of patients can sit and have a break, as well as we have a new coffee bar in there. Down this hallway, which you'll see in a minute, is where it connects from our new building, the North Building, to the South Building. Here is our information desk. If you look straight at it, you're coming in on this side. You'll enter the information desk, and just to the left of it here by these glass doors, we've created space for a patient and family resource center. And this really is to provide family members and patients themselves information on different medical procedures or illnesses. And it's staffed every day by volunteers through the regular working hours, 9 to about 4 o'clock. This is the other view from the other side. But note the natural finishes and the lighting. Lots of glass for natural sunlight. It creates a very peaceful, calm feeling for everyone to experience that as they walk through our doors. Additionally, it also can be brought through many years without feeling dated. So I think the team did a very good job in creating, the wood, the stone, the lighting to make it feel very comfortable and calming. You'll see here our donor recognition wall. It highlights different individuals, grateful patients, community members, and businesses who have given to the hospital and made this project really possible. I think, Joe, if you would now just take a minute and talk about how we were able to fund this major project.
Sure. Just a fun fact about the lobby. My first thought as being part of the facility team was, how am I going to keep those windows clean?
Yeah.
Because the morning sun shows every defect in those windows and how to keep them clean. So everybody says, expects me to get on a ladder and to clean the windows, but we're still trying to work those details out. Anyway, this was a 300,000 square foot addition to our existing facility. So, and along with this, it was broken up into two phases. Phase one was the parking garage and phase two was the north building. So the total project was $275 million. And we decided to take a third, and a third, which was a third from Philanthropy, a third out of our cash reserve, and then we borrowed the last third to pay for it. So our mortgage is quite extensive on this. So, going forward with this, we knew that we were able to afford the building in this manner, and thankfully to the Philanthropy, we were able to reach our goal and to help support this building and the technology that went into it.
This yellow wall sits near our hospital's new cafe and marks the prayer and meditation room, which is non-denominational. And also, if you go into it this way, we have a chaplain who is on staff here at Suburban, who has an office back here. Additionally, this room, it's very, again, very clean look, peaceful, serene. It's used by different family members and patients who, regardless of religious background, is a private, calm place to come, say a prayer, gather family in times of need. If you also look around the hospital, we have walls in bright different colors, and it really was used to be a source of wayfinding for patients and families, and we could say, like, the prayer room is directly down the hall, look for the yellow wall, or medical records is directly this way, look for the green wall. So it was really, and it brightens up the space as well. Maybe this is a good point. Maybe, Joe, you could talk about, long-term flexibility and thinking ahead for vertical growth if we needed. And if you can explain that a little bit.
Sure. So since our campus is kind of restrained as far as horizontally, the building currently is at the code for Bethesda and for the residential code. So looking towards the future, John McMahon, who's one of our friends, had a good idea for us to, why don't we add the structural steel and concrete into the building and also into our garage, to where we can add 3 levels on our parking garage and 3 levels onto the north building, just in the future if the code changes. So the only way we have to go is up vertically. So it would be a lot cheaper to do it now, which we incorporated into the building. And then we also, with that in mind, we actually put elevator shafts in that go up the roof to anticipate for that expansion in the future. So we wouldn't have to do that and interrupt our existing shafts as we have them today. So there's been a lot of insight put into that expansion, and including our HVAC systems. We have a lot of redundancy in our HVAC systems. And because we're part of the neighborhood and we have noise restrictions, all of our systems, our generators, our chillers, and air handling units are all below grade. So you cannot, they don't make a sound outside, because we want to be kind to our neighbors and make sure that we are being good neighbors. But we have a lot of redundancy built in. We built in a lot of future space to add, the infrastructure that we need, whether it be another chiller, whether it be air handling units, or an additional generator to handle any future growth, as well as electrical equipment. we're in a major project right now, which is about a $4.5 million project to replace the electrical gear in our south building that supports our south building. But we, in anticipation of that, we ran the duct bank through to the north building. We have the physical space to put the exact same electrical equipment that we have in the north building to support the south building. The electrical equipment that we have in the south building has Westinghouse on the panel. So we all know that what happened to Westinghouse and hasn't been in business in a while. So we just want to make sure that we keep everybody safe and that we replace it in a timely fashion. So that is budgeted for next year for us to do. But I do feel that the flexibility that we built into this is going to prepare Suburban very well for the future.
Great. The video walls and other technology are throughout the entire building. This shows a little bit of what we've done, but it really does a great job to promote different physicians or service lines we have, or events, anything really. It can be changed within, half hour, maybe quicker if our marketing team is up to it. But we enjoy that. Everything is really, again, clean looking and very state of the art. Here's our new conference and education center, the boardroom, which seats our entire board now. There are 4 additional rooms that have removable walls and can accommodate a variety of different group sizes for events, for both the public and for our own staff. Different trainings, anything really. This would be a great time. Maybe Joe, you can tell us what's been happening in this room specifically over the last year.
Sure, we designed this as flexible space as well. So as it was pointed out by Janine, these are walls, movable walls, so we can open up this to one big space. This is also used as our incident command center for any disaster. So we put the infrastructure in, extra data, extra power, video, so we can keep in touch with the outside world if we need to during a disaster. So this would be used as our incident command center. So we opened the building last March 6th, and we admitted our first patient March 11th. So we were sometimes I guess it's better to be lucky than good, but we were very fortunate to have this building. So we used this space as our incident command center for the pandemic. So I'm glad that space was there because we were able to social distance and keep people apart and have daily updates throughout that process. So we put it back together to use this conference space. And so we're not meeting in person, we're meeting in Zoom. So what are we using it today for? We're using it as our vaccine clinic. We started in late January to do our vaccine clinic. We're averaging about 300 a day. I think we've done about 16 to 17,000 vaccines since late January, and we will continue to do that as long as we receive the allocation of vaccines from the state.
So as you can see, this is used for a lot of different things whenever we need it. Here's back to the, again, on the same floor as you enter on is the Atrium lobby elevator, where you can either go upstairs to 2 floors of rooms or downstairs to our operating rooms and procedure rooms. So I think we'll go upstairs first. So here, this is the 3rd floor, and it's comprised of 2 medical units. So 3800 unit has 30 beds, and the 3700 unit has 24 beds. And they're all private rooms, which is such a big deal for us. Now every room in Suburban is a private room. And so it's just a wonderful thing. We have 2 team stations, one here, one directly at the back. Again, this floor was really designed for wayfinding. You'll see the colors. Down here, you'll see, I don't know if you can see it, but we have seating areas, as well as the rooms were designed to be set back from the hallway to give the patients the most quiet at both, night and during the day if they needed it. We have workstations in between each room, so the techs and the physicians can get right to the patient and then get right to their computer stations. For the staff, we have hydration stations all throughout the building. We have showers, staff rooms, lockers. They really appreciate this, except that it's 3 times bigger than they're used to. And so they're doing a lot more steps. Here is the private patient room, typical room. Joe can talk a little bit about the technology, but each room has a private bathroom and is really designed to be, comfortable for both the patient and the family.
Yeah, one of the biggest requests that we had, especially with our flat screen TVs, was do we have ESPN? So we have. You'd be surprised how people are with the TV request. So on your right there, you can see the right screen there is an electronic patient information board. So that's tied into our electronic medical record. So when a nurse or a tech can update that from the team station, so that the patient is always kept informed as far as who their doctor is, who their nurse is, who their tech is, and various information. They can order meals through it. So we used to have in the South building, which we still do in some of the older units, we have a whiteboard that's a erasable whiteboard. So this was a major step in technology. And so since it's interfaced with the medical, electronic medical record, it's just so easy to update and keep, like I said, keep people informed. And then when they change shifts, as far as if the doctors change and change, or the text change, they're just updating it once in the electronic system, and it automatically updates, and it keeps them informed, and it has their phone numbers. Each of the nurses and techs carry phones with them, and the doctors carry phones with them, so they're able to connect with their caregivers through this electronic board.
The other neat thing is that a lot of our staff was telling the designers and architects of this is that they wanted a lot of minimal spaces, like that people could put magazines or newspapers or sodas. So if you notice, this is slanted, you can't put anything there. The only thing you can use are flat surfaces right there. So this was designed that way for a reason. And these pull-out couches are for our staff. I mean, for our patients' families, if they want to stay over, typical of a hospital room. This is a closet for, any personal belongings, as well as a locker in there. And then these blinds are controlled from the outside and allow the staff to look in on a patient before they go in to see if they're sleeping, then they wouldn't bother them. So that was another nice design, I thought was pretty good. Each floor also has a family lounge, which is this area back here, and allows family members to kind of give the patient some privacy and come out of the room at times. There's a workstation here, a refrigerator on the right, as well as a private bathroom. And it really allows visitors to be able to stay, but not be in the room at all times. There's also a family meeting room on each floor, as well as the lower level, which can be used for families who have private conversations or need to with their physicians. Also technology, again, in every room to be able to Zoom relatives in who aren't there, a sister or a brother who is in California can be Zoomed in for the purpose of hearing the conversation. This is our fourth floor, which if you note the glass rooms and the outside of the blinds, again, they can look in without being disturbing the patient. There's also hydration stations, a number of showers and staff meeting rooms back here. This was designed specifically for what Joe will tell you, what we never thought we would have to use it for, a pandemic. I remember taking people, and Cindy, you too, on tours of this before it was ever finished, saying, this would be able to handle a pandemic if we ever had it. God forbid we do. And then here we are, we opened the building and we're using it within the first couple of weeks. Maybe Joe, can you talk a little bit about the air handler design and how
Sure.
that works?
Sure, and you can see on the unit the sliding glass doors, and that was a specific design of ours, because as care is changing in the acuity level, the patients are higher. If we ever had to convert this from a surgical unit into an ICU critical care unit, we could easily do that the way this is designed with those sliding doors, and have minimal disruption and cost. Actually, as far as to convert this to an ICU. So we were well into the design process on this, and I think it was Margaret Fitzwilliam that had heard something about, hey, how about making a unit that's a pandemic unit? So we thought about it, and we got a lot of people involved. We had to make a lot of design changes during the process. So this entire unit can be flipped to negative pressure, which is critical for any airborne illness. So we were able to flip this to negative pressure, and this is where the COVID patients started as we started admitting patients. As Janine said, we kind of joked about it that, well, hopefully we won't have to use it. Little did we know that we would be using it less than 2 weeks after we opened the building. So it was, on hindsight again, it was the best thing we could have done, and it was not a cheap change to do this either. So it's, to this day, I mean, we can use this as a pandemic. Fortunately, this is a non-COVID unit right now because our COVID numbers are low. But to put that infrastructure in, and from the workflow of how to get to the patient, even from an elevator, having a rear door so that the elevator would open into the unit, and the patient would come right from the ED up to the unit and to a negative pressure unit to keep him in isolation.
This is as we go downstairs into our lower level, which is our first floor. This is the surgical and procedural services area. So this is where patients would come in, they'd check in upstairs, they'd come straight downstairs and think, about someone coming in for a hip replacement, would check in at this desk. They would be given a number for the family members to be able to track on this board throughout the whole procedure. So through pre-op, the surgery, post-op, these screens are all over the building. And it allows family members to not have to stay right here and wait for information. All they have to do is look up here and see their family member's number and what their status is. So that's another kind of nice idea and feature that we have, as well as this space was designed to appear as if it's lit or there's outdoor lighting. This is underground. It is not outside lighting. So that's all just fake light, which actually ends up being really nice and bright, where you don't feel like you're in a dungeon or below ground. So we are very happy with this area. Plus it's about 3 times the size of our old surgical waiting area. This is a photo of one of our new OR spaces. We now have 14 operating rooms, with one being a hybrid room where they have complex cardiac and vascular procedures, with not having to transfer the patient from one room to the other. They can do all the procedures right here in this room. We have 2 cardiac cath labs and 2 procedural rooms, and 24 bays for recovering afterwards. This space, unfortunately, cannot be seen by the public anymore. We were able to do tours last year, but it is now what we call terminally cleaned and not able to be accessed by anyone but the staff down there. Joe, can you talk a little bit about the technology we have now, and how philanthropy maybe even plays a big part in that?
Sure. The design of these new ORs, these surgical suites, they're all square, and that's for a specific reason, and it's so that you can have equipment bringing in to support any kind of type of surgery. So we can do basically any type of surgery in any of the rooms. So with the robot technology that's out there, we have a Da Vinci robot. We're actually getting ready to purchase our replacement Da Vinci robot. And we have our robot for orthopedics, and even the hybrid room has a robot in it. So we wanted to make sure that we had enough square footage that we could support that. And on those columns that are coming down, the booms that they're called, you can see there's all the utilities that are built into those out. There's several electrical outlets. There's medical gases built in. So this is very built very efficiently. So you don't have lines, tripping over cords or, those kind of things. And it'll give us the opportunity to add the technology. Part of being part of Johns Hopkins Medicine, we do have a Robotics Committee that we all talk about what we need. I mean, it's expensive technology, but we want to make sure that it's utilized properly, and that we also have the space to be able to operate this equipment. So each of these rooms is pretty close to 800 square feet each. I can tell you some of our ORs in our South building they weren't square. They were oddly shaped, some of them, but some of them were as little as 450 square feet. So they were very antiquated. So having this new surgical suite and being able to add the technology in these areas is crucial. As the hybrid room alone was $2 million. And each of the cath labs were $1 million each. So this technology is not inexpensive. And every doc that comes out now says, well, I've been trained on a robot, that I need a robot for all my specialties. But we have to keep in mind when we buy this technology that it adds expense per case. So you wouldn't want to use a Da Vinci robot on doing hernias or appendectomies. You want to do it for more critical cases. But the dilemma that we have with some of our physicians is that they're being trained on these robotics and they need to keep their skills set up. So this is another advantage of being part of the health system, that they can go to Hopkins and Hopkins Hospital and still use the robots there and keep their skills set up. But these rooms are designed definitely for future, and there's enough utilities there to accommodate any technology that we would add.
Great, thank you. So as we mentioned, the foundation is, part of the philanthropic arm of the hospital, and it supports a number of different programs, as well as capital projects. But I'm going to ask Cindy now to kind of talk a little bit about philanthropy and how meaningful it is to us and our clinical teams on the front lines.
I'm sorry, I was on mute again. Thank you, Janine and Joe and everyone for being here. Really, like Joe said, I'm similar to Joe. I've actually worked at Suburban for more than 20 years, and watching this campus transformation has been so incredibly inspiring. And I'm so grateful for all of you for taking the time to hear a little bit about it, and to Janine and Joe for giving you a tour. Obviously, we would love to be doing this in person, giving you a tour, and so many of the features that Janine talked about are geared toward family. We're very patient and family centered in our care, and we are very anxious for the day that we can invite family members back into this beautiful space, so that they can be care partners with their loved ones as they go, through whatever treatments they're undergoing. So philanthropy, Joe mentioned this a little bit. This campus transformation was a very expensive project. A big chunk of it did blessedly come from philanthropy from our generous community. In 2020 alone, we raised more than $11 million, and the great majority of that did go to the capital project. The image that Janine has up on the screen here is actually additional dollars that went into programs. So when dollars come into the foundation, then they go back out into the hospital to support a specific program. So obviously the capital project, nursing was a very significant portion. We had a tremendous outpouring of support for our COVID initiatives. And, you know, as the money came in, Joe was spending the money. So, you know, there's obviously a tremendous amount of needs in terms of bringing different systems online and renovating space to make sure that we had the appropriate things to care for our patients, PPE for our staff members, tremendous amount of PPE was needed, and other things. And so we really did have an incredible outpouring of support from our community to help in those ways. Frontline support, meals, you know, donated masks, people making masks and head caps and things like that. So philanthropy from our community, both in dollars and in in-kind giving, has really made the difference in this project, and certainly in our ability to care for our community during this pandemic. Did I miss anything you wanted me to hit there, Janine?
No, that's perfect. That's really perfect. And before we open up for questions, I'd love to just stress something we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks is, please don't put off appointments that you have with your doctors. The hospital is ready to see you if you need us. Your physicians are ready to see you. It's really important to keep those screenings up. We just ask you to know that we are safe. We're a safe place to come, and we're open 24/7. So come and see us.
Yeah, and I'll add to that as well, and Joe might as well. You know, we're obviously the reason that we're here talking with you today is because of this beautiful new expanded campus. But I will say, and Joe will echo this, the ability to have expanded space really was such an incredible lifesaver in this scenario. You know, right now, even we're able to have any COVID patients designated in one area and our operating rooms fully operational, and the rest of in fact, the entire North Building at this point, non-COVID. And so it really does allow for flexibility in a way that we hadn't anticipated, you know, needing to use it at this time. So I don't know, Joe, if you want to add anything, or people may have questions about that.
Yeah, I mean, and the staff have just done a remarkable job as far as handling the crisis. You know, we opened the building to patients on March 6th, but we didn't use the ORs until June because the pandemic had suspended our elective surgeries. So we continued standing around waiting for, right, when are we going to do our first patient? So the OR staff were redeployed to do other things and did a miraculous job as far as helping us through this. But if we wouldn't have had this building, we wouldn't have been able to handle this crisis the way we handled it. It would have been very, very problematic for us to be able to handle the amount of COVID patients that we had. So, you know, again, thank God we opened one day and a week later it hit that we had these patients. But I shudder to think what we would have had to do without this building.
Yeah, at one point, Joe, I know you probably have the specific numbers on this. We talked about the pandemic unit in the North Building, and that's a 24-bed unit. And at one point in the height of the pandemic, we had more than 5 units open for COVID patients. So, and also sharing responsibility with the other Hopkins hospitals as well, taking patients and all to help other people out as well. So, you know, you think about, you don't want to think about a pandemic. And in this case, we did think about a pandemic in terms of creating that one unit, but, you know, we quickly surpassed 4 or 5.
Yeah, and just about PPE, which is protective equipment for our staff. And this number is for the health system. So our projected budget for PPE for the health system was 13 million. And it's projected to be 33 million by the end of this fiscal year. So, you know, by keeping people safe, it's an additional $20 million that was added in expense. And we don't see that the price, it'll never go back to what it was pre-COVID. You know, so we struggle with those issues as far as how do we make sure that we keep people safe and be able to afford the things that we can do to keep our patients safe as well. So there's thankfully, if we wouldn't have been part of Johns Hopkins Health System, we would have been in a little bit of trouble as well. So the health system helped us a great deal with the with PPE.
Annabelle, do you have any questions there?
There are no questions in the chat, but I just want to say one thing, and that is the fact that, as Joe mentioned, like this was in the works for 10 years and that it all came together and was completed. You know, I know you guys did a lot of work. I know there was a lot of planning and so much involved, but you know, I have to believe like that it was days before like this hit. Is it partially the grace of God that like, I mean, how, you know, I mean, this is just, that's a really interesting part of the whole story.
We've said that so many times, Annabelle.
Yes.
I mean, it's, you know, the divine intervention of that is really incredible and just an enormous blessing for our community.
We were never able to celebrate the opening of the building with our staff. That was unfortunate. I mean, we're still thinking about things that we can do for our staff, but we really had a lot of things planned to do, but they were all put aside when the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
Looks like Anita has a question.
I want to say that there's a big part of Suburban that's been missing in this discussion tonight, and that's your staff. Because I had my knee replaced February the 11th, 2019. And one of the reasons that my daughter did not spend the night with me is because my nurse said my response time is 3 minutes at the most. When you ring that bell, I will be beside you within 3 minutes. If I can't be there, another nurse will be there. And I looked at Rose and I said, honey, you don't have to sleep on a chair tonight. Go home. I'm well taken care of. And I was excellently taken care of. I was a patient last Thursday in your surgical unit for some more minor surgery. And I have the highest regard for everyone that served me. And I think that's really important. I think nurses, I think the entire staff, the doctors and the nurses are more people oriented than doctors and nurses used to be. And that makes a big difference in the quality of care. So kudos to Suburban. I'm one of your biggest fans.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
So much. You know, it's interesting that you should bring that up, and I'm so grateful that you did. We actually were having a conversation about this the other day. You know, we've always felt that our community deserved a space like the one that we now have, the hospital facility with the private patient rooms and all of that. But there's nothing can replace the importance of that personal and compassionate touch and skillful touch of our staff. And so there's nothing more important than that. And we thank you so much for acknowledging that.
I have a question. Joe, when you were explaining how you built the new wing with the infrastructure to go build up, like I know you guys think about this very far in advance. Like, what are your thoughts and projections on that, like going forward? Or does that remain to be seen?
Thankfully, it'll be someone else's problem.
50 years.
No, I'm joking. This was to prepare us for probably 20 years down the road, if we're able to do that. So it's just that the cost in 20 years probably would have been cost prohibitive to do. But I often think about, how do you build 3 floors on top of patient units, and how do you keep patients safe? And I know it's been done in other areas, in other buildings and stuff, but I just watching this thing be built and put everything in place was just amazing. But you know, again, it does prepare Suburban well for the future. I think there's a lot of flexibility in the way that building was built and the use, and also from a structural standpoint. So it was, I can't take the credit for that. It was our architects and our engineers that really put their heads together that says this is the right thing to do.
Okay. Well, Joe, you've only got 23 years under your belt. You know?
Well, yeah, I think as you can tell, I'm not a young man, so That's
You know what?
something for, that's
I have
something,
you all beat on that. I've been at my firm for 26.
that project's going to be for some, probably my replacement.
But you know, one of the things that I do know that Joe's thinking about right now, and of course, again, the plans have been a little bit skewed by the pandemic, but you know, in opening the North Building, it does give us tremendous opportunity in the South Building for master facility planning of things that we might be able to do or expand or change in that building. And of course, right now, that's you know, most of that is on hold because that building is being used primarily for COVID response, but it does give us a lot of flexibility of additional space that we'll be able to utilize in the South Building in the future.
And so now with the pandemic, because a lot of the rooms in the older wing were shared rooms. So are all rooms individual rooms now?
They are. That was part of the certificate of need. We did not add any beds, licensed beds during this process. We just converted to all private rooms. So people ask, well, what are you putting in the North Building? And it was like, well, it's private rooms. The 50% of our med surg beds were semi-private in the South Building, and it just was a big patient dissatisfier. So we, even though there are semi-private rooms in the South Building, we only have one bed in the units that we kept open.
And will it remain like that, or do you think?
You know, we have a master facility plan that has the future use, and you know, we have some areas of priorities, and one of the big projects that is probably next. When I say a big project, I'm talking something that's probably, you know, 10 to 12 to 15 million is our ED expansion. Our ED is woefully undersized. And it's the workflow through there that it's just not designed well, and it needs to be reworked, but you have to do it in place. You can't close your ED. And then also our behavioral health unit is probably the second priority, and you're talking probably 10 to 12 million there as well, as far as to do a psych unit to keep patients safe. So you know, the pandemic really changed the way we thought. I mean, we had a plan where we thought we were going to close units. We thought our 6th floor was going to be completely empty by relocating nursing units and relocating our pharmacy. But we're rethinking all that now, as far as as we've kept units open for non-COVID patients. And that's our challenge right now, is the non-COVID patients, because we only have one unit open for COVID, but there's a significant need for non-COVID patients that are currently, we're not getting through our ED quick enough. So we looked at our assumptions probably back in 2019, and we just met a couple of weeks ago and looking at it, and those assumptions are no longer valid. So we're reassessing where we want to spend the money and what we need to do, and where patients are going to wind up. You know, in our surgical floors in the North Building, orthopedics joint replacements are migrating to outpatient. We have about a one-day length of stay for our joint replacements now. So do we want to put patients in the North Building that are going to be discharged in a relatively short period of time, or do we want to make sure that we have patients that are going to be in these private rooms, in these new private rooms, and to be utilized? So we're rethinking everything at this point in time. And since we have a new regional president and we have a new president coming in April, I'm sure we'll be looking to them as far as giving us some direction as far as what will we be doing next, and also the affordability of doing any renovation to the South Building.
Okay, we do have one question in the chat that just came in. Will the old ER continue to function?
Yes, as it is today, it will. And the helipad will stay, the ambulance entrance will stay the way it is. When we do a design of a new ED, I mean, it's a domino effect. So we'll have to relocate certain people so that we can expand the ED, but we have to do it in phases, and you have to do it in place while the patients are being seen during a major renovation. So we have to do it in phases. You know, it's interesting as far as you kind of get tunnel vision. We talked to our ER docs who are great. These guys are, they're all the docs are wonderful in the ED. And they said, well, we like it the way it is now, the way it's tight and we're all close to one another. And it's like, that's what they know. But we know that we don't have the internal expertise to be able to design a new ED for the future. And if you design something and build it today, you're going to have to live with it for probably 20 to 25 years. And so we would have to hire some outside consulting to help us with designing a new ED. But that's our goal right now, is to be able to, our next big project. Our CFO says, you can't afford to do anything for at least a decade. Come on.
Well, that depends on Janine and Cindy and myself.
Right? Yeah.
We think that our community will actually be very supportive of an ED renovation.
One
We're
last
really lucky, anyone who's been to the hospital before probably remembers that the lobby where you used to enter right next to the ambulance bays there, that was the main lobby, and that's completely decanted now. And that whole front hallway that you used to go down when you came into the hospital. So the nice thing is that the emergency department is contiguous with some of those areas that have now been decanted, which would allow this in-place expansion that eventually we will do.
It looks like we have one more question if we have time.
Sure.
Are staffers tested regularly for COVID?
Right now, they can be tested upon request if they want to be tested if they're asymptomatic. If the thing about testing is you can test negative today, in 48 hours you can flip to positive, but you could be walking around asymptomatic, not have any symptoms, and be COVID positive. But it's upon personal request at this point in time. We don't require it, but they can go into My Chart in Epic, which is our electronic medical record, and they can schedule their own test. Now, if people are traveling, we expect them to be honest with us and tell them that they're traveling, or if they are exposed to a family member that's positive, then they are quarantined for the amount of time that our infectious control colleagues at Hopkins has recommended. So we're following a lot of the Hopkins guidelines and also the CDC guidelines for testing for employees and for patients.
Okay. And as staff members, the first thing that we do every day actually is answer an attestation, like many other people do, like if you're going to school or something like that, that answers a set of questions and allows us as a team to know that everyone has answered those questions honestly. And in the event that there is any exposure or any symptoms, that those people will be tested immediately. In addition to that, of course, all of our staff had the opportunity to be vaccinated.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We are hitting the hour in about 2 minutes. So I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. And if you have any questions, I'm sure about the hospital, I'm sure Janine or Cindy or myself are available to help in any way. And just please stay safe and be well, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everyone.
Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you
You
so
too.
much.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Jeff. Bye.
Bye.